I almost feel like we could, on days like this, that we could practically just replay maybe literally a half dozen other episodes of this show. We've been doing it for, 4 years. I think you've been regular on the show for about 4.5 years, almost the entire
Sounds
show.
about right.
And it seems like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 times a year, there is a mass killing that takes place either on the day of the show, on the night before the show that you come on that week, and this is another one.
Yeah.
This is apparently the 294th. I don't know, mass shooting or in the United States, or maybe that's the shootings, I guess. I'm not sure. That's from the Boston Globe.
Well, it's the 45th this year, I think that was the number. So we're good for about one a week. And yeah, look, there gets to be a point where, I was pissed off as hell yesterday. I still am. I don't think that in our politics you can find a more direct relationship between, and to his credit, Senator Chris Murphy tweeted this out, and I think he's made a statement along these lines. Obviously, he's Connecticut, and Newtown was there. At what point essentially are these guys in the Senate and the House culpable? And I'd say they are at this point. I would literally say there's blood on their hands, because there's no question here. This isn't a difficult relationship. If you have a functioning cerebrum, you can look at every other country like us and see that this stuff never happens. And if it does, it's like once every 2 or 3 or 5 years. Or, if you have a functioning brain, you can look at Australia that had one a year leading up to the Port Arthur massacre. And we've talked about this, God knows how many times before, in '96. And since they passed their gun laws there, after that, reacting to that the way normal countries react when their innocents are gunned down, they haven't had one mass shooting. But we're at a point now where we only cover stuff like this. You know what I mean? A mass shooting is either 4 people being killed or injured, is the definition the FBI uses, and you don't even know. Most people don't even know about most of those that go on, because if it's some lunatic who is angry at his ex-wife or something and goes home and because of it shoots his wife and his kids and himself, often we don't even hear about that, because that's not a big enough tragedy anymore in America. That's sort of run-of-the-mill. We only hear about if it's double digits who are killed on a campus, or if it's people who are shot actually on live TV who are newscasters, because that's a sensational type thing. That's the only time we hear about it now. But, again, I don't think there's any more obvious case of where we know what works, because everybody else has done it, and it's worked for all of them. Will you eliminate every firearm death? No. Will we ever get to a point of where we have firearm deaths go down to the level of, let's say, a Japan or so, which has half our population almost, and had something like 3 people shot and killed last year? Just think about that for a second. No, because nobody has a right to a handgun, and they make it almost impossible, and that's going to be a very difficult thing to achieve in this country. But there's, you hear about background checks all the time and assault weapons ban, but there's a good 20, 25 other pretty serious reforms and pretty, things we could do. Some of the things like what California is doing, where there can be a restraining order against somebody while, if their family knows they may commit an act of violence, where they take their guns away, things like that every other sane country has. Or doing a psychological profile of somebody in addition to a background check, which every other sane country does, and talking to people who know them. You know what I mean? All these additional things that if you made people have to jump through all these hoops, we certainly could get to the level of gun violence per capita that Canada is at, which Canada is still, like us, has guns. People have there's a lot of hunting rifles in people's homes, things of that sort, but they have made it very difficult for you to be able to, they banned anything and all the crazy weapons, and for you to get a handgun, you really have to jump through a bunch of hoops to prove that you're not somebody who is mentally unstable, you aren't a criminal, you aren't going to commit an act of domestic violence. The people who know you can vouch for you, that kind of stuff. You're not going to find a gun in a bathroom stall because some idiot just left it there, because and they also have laws about reporting lost and stolen guns, which about 80 or 90% of people support in this country, but the NRA purposely fights against, because because of a small percentage of gun dealers who essentially are criminals, like having guns magically lost out the back door, which they can charge God knows how much money for. Stuff like that. I mean, again, we're not trying. We've allowed the NRA to fight a 20-year war against the ATF, which is the organization that is tasked with dealing with this. We've let them call them all sorts of names. We've let them cut their funding. We've let them not share data to show where shootings have happened, for them to be able to build patterns and relationships and stop some of this from happening. They wouldn't even let somebody run the damn organization for 7 years.
Right.
They would not put anybody in. And we had to literally force that through the Senate, and by taking a majority. I'm just saying, I mean, it is ludicrous. And anybody who really thought about this at all would take a look at our country, as every other country does, and say, it's not that they're just not doing a great job. It's not that they've tried everything. They're not even trying. They don't care. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what it comes down to. We have politicians who are complicit in this, because this is obvious, and that's what makes it, I think, for me, so visceral and so sickening, because rarely is there something where you see as direct a relationship. They don't pass law A, person B dies. I mean, it's that direct.
I think, look, I think you make a really good point, which is, it's not just that, we can argue, people can argue about the efficacy of Law A or Law B or whatnot, but at the end of the day, this is not an argument about efficacy. This is an argument, and certainly, gun laws have lapsed in this country at different times, right? So this is not an argument about efficacy. This is an argument as to whether or not there's a will to do anything.